Okay, so I've been asked by several folks to go over things such as, settings in the BIOS, updating the BIOS, just kind of a primer. So I thought I'd go through these, talk about some settings that you may not be aware of, ones I wasn't aware of until I started researching this. Now, when we hear the term BIOS, it's pretty much synonymous with firmware. Firmware is kind of that in between hardware and software. So it's stuff that's kind of stored on the computer, inside of the computer, but is also sort of changeable. It's not fixed. So the BIOS is the part that is kind of the go-between between the operating system and the hardware. So the first kind of question is, well, how do I even get to this startup menu? And so what I thought I'd do is just kind of show real quick. Essentially, when the computer is booting, you're going to want to hit the escape key. You don't want to hit it too many times, because I've done this and it seems to, somehow overflow or, disrupt the keyboard buffer, and now suddenly your keys don't work and the only thing that will work is the mouse. I would suggest having both the keyboard and mouse connected. It's just going to make it a lot easier for doing the setting. And I'm waiting to see when I see this sort of protected or the HP and I hit the escape key. You may have missed it in the lower left-hand corner. There was something that says entering setup. If you wait too long, it's going to go into your operating system. I find if I'm going to be doing a lot of stuff with the BIOS is I try to do everything, with everything disconnected, and it just makes it a little easier going in. If you do have an operating system set up, and for example, Windows, you can go into the command line and type in shutdown/R/FW for firmware. And if you do that, then the next time it will cause it to restart and we'll go right into the BIOS menus. So from here, what we want to do is go F10 or choose it either with the up and down arrows or with the mouse. BIOS setup. System information, just some basics. It's a good thing to go and just, maybe you've just gotten the unit and you've put in your memory and your CPU. You just want to make sure everything looks right. This is going to be able to give you some basics. You can go advanced. It gets into more hardcore memory speeds, service dates, serial numbers, etc. So that's system information. The one that you're definitely going to want to use a lot is the update system BIOS. So if I choose that, it's going to tell me, the current version, check HP for BIOS updates. You can go in here for the configuration. Normally, you would just want to leave this as is, and it's going to set up and just use DHCP. What I might suggest would be to do a test network connection. And assuming that, of course, you have your network cable connected, it's going to say, hey, I went out, I was able to get to HP, everything looks good, this is the IP address I'm going to use. Then I can come back here, I can say update system BIOS, we'll do a check, continue. Okay, so it went out, my current BIOS is 2.50, rollback is 2.49, and there isn't anything newer. There isn't a 2.51 that I could upgrade to, so that's not a choice. But if I wanted to, I could do rollback to 2.49. Now, why would I want to go backwards? It happens. Maybe a BIOS version came out and suddenly you started getting some really odd behavior from some of your hardware. Maybe something just stopped working completely. And you're like, well, okay, maybe I'll try doing a rollback. Now, one kind of neat thing is if I go into BIOS update preferences, I can actually have it set up to automatically go and pull updates. Date and time, not too important. System IDs. Now, these are kind of nifty. By default, the asset tracking number is normally the the serial number of the unit, and then the ownership tag is something you can put in here. Like you could say, my G3 Mini, and that will stay in there. And when you're rebooting, it will actually show up at the top of the screen. It will say, based on the ownership tag, replicated setup. Now, this is one I've probably seen this screen hundreds of times, and this is even on the G1, and I'm like, oh, what exactly is this? Well, what it is, if I come in here and I have a USB thumb drive, I can say backup current settings, and it's going to back them up. And then what's kind of cool is that I could then restore from those settings. And I believe the idea is, let's say again in a corporate environment, I've got 10 G3s and I want to make them all look the same. So I take one of them, do all the settings, all the stuff that I want, save that on the thumb drive, and then as I go to each one, all I need to go is into this replicated setup, do the restore, and it says, oh, okay, brought it in. And it's good to go, and it's got all the settings. It's all, I may have to go on to the main and save them, but at least I don't have to go through all of them and try to remember all the various settings that I've done. And it kind of creates a pretty cool little snapshot of what your machine is set up. Let me show you. So here's what the HP setup.txt file that got created. And it's got the product name, this is Elite Desk 800. You notice here it's got the serial number, asset tracking number, ownership tag that I typed in, my G3 Mini, feature byte. This is normally what you see on the back of the unit, bottom of the chassis. Now let's look at the security menu. The create BIOS administrator password. This would be if you want, I don't know, let's say you are going to give this unit to your child, your parent, somebody, and you don't want them accidentally getting into the BIOS and messing with stuff. Post power on password. This would be if you want an extra level of protection on your computer, is that anytime it's booted up, you have to give a password in order to proceed. Let's see, advanced. You could change the display language. If you want something other than English, you can change it there. Boot options. Okay, these are ones that are used quite a bit, pretty critical. I kind of want to go over some of these. All right, fast boot. Always good to have this turned on. It just makes the booting up a little faster. CD-ROM boot. Normally, I would just turn this off. Because essentially, why have it even look for a CD-ROM, especially on a Mini? You may want to leave this on because people do, like the Win2Go and that kind of thing, do boot off of USB. This I would uncheck. Again, kind of a corporate environment for the network PXE boot. This is cool. After power loss. And I have mine set for power on. This would be if you had that computer that was on all the time. Let's say it was being used as a Proxmox host, and the idea is that, hey, your home loses power and your UPS dies out and all the machines turn off. Well, as soon as the power comes back and the UPS has enough power and it sends power to your Mini, it's going to cause it to actually turn on. If you have it set to power on, normally this is going to say power off, which essentially means if I turned it off, it's off. Or it got turned off, however it got turned off, stay off until I go and turn it back on. These other ones, I don't find a whole lot of use to them. When they're on is that if you ever change the memory, it's going to complain. If you ever change the boot drive to a different size, it's going to complain if you have these turned on. Audio alerts, I always like having, if there is something, or if I want to hear, a boot, I'll keep that on. Numlock on, that's up to you as far as how you want to set that up. Secure boot configuration. Important thing to know what to do. A lot of times with sometimes Proxmox, sometimes Linux, sometimes other kinds of things, non-Windows, operating systems, you'll run into cases where it doesn't like Secure Boot, has some issues with it. So what you can do is come in here and change it to where you're going to enable legacy support but disable Secure Boot. The normal would be legacy support disabled, Secure Boot enabled. If you can have everything work this way, then you're never going to have to worry about, what you plug in. System options. So if you're doing Optane, most people aren't anymore. I have a video on that if you want to check that out. Turbo Boost. You want to get the most juice, or you want to allow the processor to go as high as it can, turn that on. Multiprocessor, this would be if you want to enable the ability for, because most of these have multi-core. It would be weird that you would turn this off, but if for some reason you had some sort of instance where, you needed to run it as single core, you could do that. This particular unit doesn't have it, but you'll also have a choice here for whether to support hyperthreading. So if your CPU supports hyperthreading, so as example, it may only have 2 physical core, but it will have 4 threads. It's basically supporting hyperthreading. So you want to make sure that's on, so that way if you're doing any sort of virtualization, then you're going to get 4 core because of the hyperthreading. This is to turn on virtualization. You definitely need this on if you're going to do Proxmox, Hyper-V. This one goes kind of hand in hand with this. This allows for pass-through. So if you have a case where I'm doing Proxmox and I need my SATA controller to be able to pass through so that my VM, which is doing TrueNAS, can actually see it. Don't know why you would turn these off, the M.2 SSD or the, basically your wireless. Let's go to built-in device options. This is where you can set the amount of video, because of course these processors have built-in video cards or, GPUs. This is how much memory you're going to give to it. Now, this is an interesting one. I ran into this myself. So when this is on and you have a Wi-Fi card and you have LAN, if you plug in the cable for the LAN and this is turned on, it automatically turns off Wi-Fi. You can't have both running at the same time. And I was doing some testing and I'm like, why does it keep switching it off? Is there something wrong? And it was because this was on. So I turned it off. Then I could have Wi-Fi, which could, get its own IP address, and I could have the LAN, it could get its own IP address. This is an interesting one. I always wondered what this was. And let me pop in there and just show you. I hit return. I can go in here and I can actually set up a VLAN, or I should say make it VLAN aware and say I want to use a specific VLAN. So in my case, my setup has just the normal, sometimes you call it VLAN 1, which is kind of the untagged, everything's sort of connected to it. And then I have a VLAN 3, which I use, that's a little more protected. I use it for my Wi-Fi. And if I had any devices, hard-coded devices that I didn't want to be able to see the rest of the computers on there, I put them on VLAN 3. Now, unfortunately, these units don't like it when they're on a tagged VLAN, unless you use this. So what I did before was I went in here and I did 3, and then I did a priority. I just said, I guess 1, and then I added it. Takes a little bit there. So now it has VLAN 3. Once I did that, when I went back into the BIOS and I was doing anything with the updating the BIOS, when I did a check to see how the network was, I then got IP addresses that were from VLAN 3. And then I could actually, go out and I could sort of protect the rest of my network so that it was on this VLAN 3. So this is something you could do here. If you change your mind, I think this might also, or conceivably should, be used if you do anything with vPro. And so then you could have IP addresses that are on your VLAN for the vPro. And then if you don't want any more, you just choose remove. Oh, I think you first have to pick it, then you say remove, and there it's gone. This save custom defaults is a way where you can sort of maybe get a baseline or sort of like a snapshot in a way and say, okay, I've got a working system. I'm just going to say save custom defaults so that way later on, if things go bad, you can just say apply custom defaults and exit. So it's in essence, go back to that snapshot. Go back 3 weeks ago when everything was fine before I started messing with stuff and do there. Now, that replicated setup would work just as well. And then the nice thing with that is then you'd actually have a record of what you did and you could go back to it. Now, in my research, I stumbled across this pretty nifty document, this PC Commercial BIOS Setup Administrator Guide, 2021-2025. What I like about it is that it goes into depth all the different menus and then even the sub-menus and tells you exactly what it's for. Now, your particular BIOS may not have all of the choices. Lock the BIOS version. When checked, disallows BIOS updates. So there's a check box on one of the screens that says, hey, I don't want to accidentally upgrade. I want to make sure that I uncheck this and then I'll do the upgrade. So this is great. I'm going to have a link to it. I found out a lot of hidden gems. Look through it and maybe there's something also, especially if you're looking like, hey, how do I do da-da-da? You can look through the document and get some ideas on what you need to change in the BIOS.